Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Our guest is a friend of mine who has transitioned her diet to incorporate more plant-based eating and wanted to share her journey to a healthier lifestyle. After a bit of a health scare, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Em. I am 23 years old, I live in Michigan, and I am a recent college graduate working in marketing. I enjoy mixed martial arts, rock climbing, and basically anything outdoors. Today, I am going to be sharing my health awakening with you and how I went from taking 4 medications a day to none and living my healthiest life.
So what was your lifestyle like before this health scare? What was the scare? What happened? Can you explain a bit about that?
Let me describe to you my eating habits growing up. I grew up in an inner city area where we didn't really have a lot of easy access to healthier foods. Where I grew up, there were corner shops all over the place, and if you wanted a quick snack, you would go to the corner shop, you would get like a drink or ice cream or chips. That was sort of my norm growing up. Thinking about it now, I really didn't see a lot of healthy options when I was walking into the stores and whatnot. I never really thought too much about what I was consuming because I was just consuming what was in front of me. But when I got to college, I started developing a lot of health issues. Now, I didn't immediately equate these health issues to my diet because these health issues, they didn't really seem like they would be something that involved my diet. I did have stomach pains, but my primary issue was problems with my breathing and my lungs. I had very congested lungs. Like, my lung congestion was so bad. There was so much mucus in my chest that I was constantly vomiting mucus. I remember the day of my college graduation, I had to make sure that I kept a water bottle with me because I didn't want to have to puke when I was walking across the stage. That was kind of a really big awakening for me, and the doctors really couldn't help me with this. They told me that it was allergies, but that didn't really make sense to me because allergies in December, that doesn't really sound right.
Wait, how long did this health problem go on for? Like, did it go for like 1 or 2 years, so every season you'd be getting the same issue?
I'd say that it started in November of 2018. That's when it got really bad. And it continued until I cleaned up my diet, maybe 6 or so months later.
Yeah.
6 or so months later, yeah. At that point, I was also like constantly getting lung infections.
Would you keep getting prescribed medication for them every time you'd go back to the doctor? He's like, here's another one. Take another one.
Yeah. So my doctor, it was a respiratory infection, not a lung infection. The doctor, she told me it was allergies. So she prescribed me 4 different medications because I'm also asthmatic. So I was getting loratadine, Singulair, and I was on a steroid inhaler, and I was also on a nasal spray.
So you said like the doctor would keep prescribing you new medications. They didn't really know what was wrong. They said it was respiratory, or you kept getting respiratory infections. But at what point, like you said, it got really bad when you were puking up mucus multiple times a day, right? Was that the lowest point?
Yeah, that definitely was the lowest point. So my doctor wasn't looking at the symptoms that I was having as one big issue. She was looking at them as multiple different issues. So to her, the respiratory infection was not related to the mucus in my chest because she diagnosed those as allergies. I realized that my diet was the issue a few months later during Ramadan.
A few months after like that lowest point in 2018.
A few months after the symptoms started. So from November 2018 up until Ramadan, I was constantly just vomiting mucus, had congested chest, and was on those medications that my doctor had prescribed me.
And Ramadan wasn't next year, like 2019, like June or July?
I believe it was in May.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in April or May. Yeah, so Ramadan is the holy month of fasting for Muslims. You abstain from food or drink from sun up till sundown. for 30 days. During Ramadan, my diet changed because there are specific foods that my family consumes to break fast, and also I wasn't eating as much. Towards the end of Ramadan, I noticed that a lot of the symptoms that I had been experiencing around my breathing and like the congestion in my chest had gone away. But towards the end of Ramadan, I started reintroducing things like pizza and burgers back into my diet, and the symptoms started picking back up.
So what were you eating during Ramadan? Like, you would break your fast in the evening, and what would you eat then?
It was primarily rice and lentils.
Okay.
I would say, and chickpeas, things like that. Nothing really processed. So at that point, I diagnosed myself with some type of gluten intolerance.
Okay, self-diagnosed?
Yeah, it was a self-diagnosed gluten intolerance. I stopped eating breads. I stopped eating like cakes and brownies and things that were rich in gluten, and it did help. I started replacing those things with plants and grains, like other types of grains that aren't glutinous, like rice and lentils and whatnot. My body was getting better. It wasn't just like the congestion in my chest that was going away, but like I stopped having stomach pains. Like, I noticed that my mood was better and more stable. I noticed that my skin was looking nicer. That was the most like significant thing that I could visibly see. Significant change that I could visibly see from changing my diet. I'm not fully plant-based. I do still eat meat here and there, but I gravitate towards having more of a plant-based diet. A few months later, I went on a trip to England. And when you're on vacation, it's kind of, especially living in somebody else's house. I was living in my aunt's houses and my grandmother's house. It's kind of hard to pick what you eat. Mm-hmm. So I started eating bread again. I was like, oh, whatever, I'm on vacation. I'll just deal with it.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this was in 2018 in February. So I started eating glutinous things again, but they were British glutinous things, and British food isn't as processed as American food. At that point, when I didn't start having symptoms, I realized that it wasn't gluten, it was processed foods that was making me sick. When I came back to America, I was like, oh shit, well, I wish I lived in England because then I could eat whatever I want. But we live in America, land with the processed, and I started incorporating gluten back into my diet, but instead of relying on store-bought goods, I started trying to bake things for myself from scratch and sticking to being more plant-based and just being more conscious of what I was putting into my body. I started thinking of my body as a machine that I need to take care of. If you have a car and you're putting really, really bad oil in it, it's going to ruin the car. You have to take care of the internal processes of the car. So that's how I started thinking about my body and the food that I was intaking. The food was not just things that taste good. The food was good fuel for my body.
And were you still on your medications actually at this point?
No.
When did you stop taking those?
I stopped taking these medications end of 2019. Yeah, that's when it was.
So Ramadan had passed, and like, where you kind of realized that your diet was the issue, and then you kind of started changing it, and then a couple months later, you stopped taking those medications?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Also, I made a mistake. So the issues did not start in 2017. They started in 2018.
No, you mentioned 2018. I thought you had mentioned they started then.
Oh, I thought I said 2017, but yeah, it was 2018. Yeah, so it's funny. The reason why I stopped taking these medications is because my health insurance had changed.
So it wasn't like purposefully. It's like I can't take these anymore.
Yeah, it was. I slowly stopped taking them, but then eventually I realized that I didn't need them anymore.
That was the blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it was. Or else I would have been paying for these medications that I didn't need to take. But That's something else that I realized. Like, if you take care of your body, your expenses are going to be significantly lower because you're not going to need all these medications to keep yourself going.
Yeah. I know people say healthy food is expensive, but it's only when you're buying the gourmet, like vegan foods or gourmet, healthy, plant-based or other items. Not even plant-based, just gourmet foods in general. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you'll go to Whole Foods and you'll see those like Brookside chocolate-covered blueberries or other random snacks. Those are expensive. But if you're just trying to eat healthy in general, like veggies and stuff are not super, like, it won't break the bank to incorporate more. And switch out like red meat or steak or something is a lot more. Like, isn't beef and meat and stuff, eggs, they're way more expensive than buying some lettuce, right? I think.
Yeah, it is definitely more expensive because looking at my grocery bill, I can get 1.5 to 2 weeks of produce for around $30. It's pretty inexpensive if you go to like your local stores, but being somebody who has studied marketing in college, I think that America tends to market dairy and meat more to people than they do like produce and healthier foods. Like this cultural shift to looking at health and what we're eating and trying to eat healthier is something that has only happened recently.
Yeah. There's a lot of documentaries that came out, right? Like Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy, all those game changers. And then over the last couple years, and Netflix got bigger, right? So people were watching these documentaries on there and just saw a surge in like plant-based eating or just healthier eating in general.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so interesting to see the power of marketing in people's health, because I remember watching this one documentary. I can't remember exactly what it's called off the top of my head. The documentary was talking about how back somewhere in the 19th century, in the mid-19th century or something, dairy companies were paying marketing agencies to push dairy, make dairy seem like it was a staple of health. When actuality, it's not. It's not a staple of health. Like, there are people who are on plant-based diets who are vegan who don't consume dairy, and their health is thriving. You mentioned Game Changers. In Game Changers, they did this study where they compared they did a blood test on two sets of athletes.
They did some kind of blood test, yeah.
Yeah, one set of athletes, they just had like meat tacos, and then another set had like vegetarian tacos.
It affected their bloodstreams right away.
Yeah, it was just so interesting to see, because growing up, you're led to believe that you need meat to survive. Like, when I was growing up, America was so meat heavy. I remember my friend telling me that after she had moved to Ann Arbor, she didn't really have a desire to eat that much meat. And I was so confused. I was like, what? Meat is everything. But after I had my health awakening, that's when I started to realize, like, hey, my thinking has been wrong this whole time. I don't need more meat. I need more plants. I need more variety in my diet.
A lot of the marketing too, where they'll just put like a happy cow on top of a picture of beef, because people feel more comfortable not knowing where their food comes from. I was watching this marketing TED Talk. Like, the lady was talking specifically about, like, I think marketing in the dairy and meat industry. She's like, yeah, we know that people don't feel comfortable knowing where all this stuff comes from. So we slapped that happy cow label on there, and people are okay with buying it. But then activists are like, no, like, you need to put a picture of a slaughterhouse on there and people will see, like, what's going on. And I heard that there's a lot of collusion between the government and dairy and meat farmers. There is just a lot of information in a lot of these documentaries.
Yeah, I think I remember watching a bit of that, and the person who was making the documentary, he was trying to get into contact with the officials and everyone's who were in charge of the...
Decline to comment.
Yeah, that's what it was.
When I watched those documentaries, when I realized how the government and all these food industries are related, and I was like, this is one big hidden loop. All of the U.S. is just kept hidden from, I guess. You don't really get to know it, but they need your money. They need you to be a consumer, otherwise it won't work, so they're not going to tell you what's going on. And I think the fact that pharmacy companies make money off of selling these drugs to people who need it because they're getting sick from eating these foods, that's how they make money.
It's just an endless cycle. You know, I wonder how people would feel if they knew how milk is produced.
Right.
Because only pregnant animals can produce
exactly.
milk.
I grew up thinking, I'm like, yeah, cows just make milk for the heck of it.
That's what I thought too. But then I found out that these cows are forcefully impregnated so farmers can collect their milk. And they're forced to give birth until they collapse.
Mm-hmm. And then if they have a male cow, the male cows are taken for slaughter, like as a baby, I think. For what I heard, veal, right?
Veal, yeah.
Yeah, so they're just slaughtered as children. And I don't think they'd waste their resources to grow that cow. Male cows don't produce milk, right? Because they don't have children. So I think those cows are slaughtered right away. Then the mother cows are forcibly impregnated over and over again until they can. Yeah, it was really bad to hear about that. I watched this one ad. I think it was just this little commercial where this experiment where this lady was giving people dog's milk, but telling them that it was a new type of like cow milk. And then after they drank it, she told them it was dog milk, and the people spit it out. They're like, what's wrong with you? And she's like, you're drinking cow's milk, and that's technically the same thing. You're drinking milk out of a random foreign animal. And that kind of was an eye-opener too, because people were like, oh wow, this tastes good. And then after that, they just spit it out. They're like, this is disgusting.
I wonder how common milk was before cows were commercialized. Like, yeah. I'm thinking back to like the year, I don't know, 1000. Where do they get their milk then? Did they just
I think milk, yogurt, cheese, I think all of these things kind of started coming later, or maybe only on farms where people could milk the cows themselves and give it to the people in their community. It wasn't mass produced.
That's so interesting, because milk is like, dairy is such a staple in the American diet. Like, yeah. if you watch a YouTube video where people are making fun of Americans, they are going to say at some point, Americans love to put cheese on everything, and that's true. We do put cheese on everything.
I went to Italy, and I was like, hey, like, where's the cheddar cheese? There ain't no cheddar cheese there. It's all Americans made up cheddar cheese because that is not from Italy. You will not see yellow cheese there. I don't know where it came from. They have mozzarella. They usually have buffalo mozzarella. But yeah, it was just that thing about, I saw cheddar cheese and like Italian dressing. Italians don't put dressing. They only put like olive oil or vinegar or some things on their salads. They never have dressings in any restaurant. I don't know where Italian dressing in the supermarket came from. Very interesting. Huh. Yeah.
You know, that's interesting. And it makes me wonder, does Italy commercialize the production of cow's milk too? Or is that just an American thing?
I don't know, because they have supermarkets there. You can buy milk, you can buy all that stuff there, but they use a lot of buffalo mozzarella on their pizzas as well. And I think that comes from buffalo milk, right? Buffalo mozzarella, unless I'm wrong. Let me Google that. Yep, buffalo mozzarella is a mozzarella made from the milk of Italian Mediterranean buffaloes. So yeah, that's why they have a lot of that over there. But I don't really know how their supply chain of like cow milk, as far as that goes, I'm not sure. I feel like America is one of the countries that does it the most, though.
What was that?
I feel like America is one of the biggest countries that has this whole mass production thing.
It's really sad, but whenever I think about America, I think artificial, fast, and processed.
But I would definitely like to see more plant-based documentaries. People should be aware of where they're spending their money.
Yes, definitely. I personally am trying to reduce the amount of dairy in my diet. Even though I'm aware of the things going on in the dairy industry, it has still been a process for me to start replacing things in my diet. Like, it's not something that you can do overnight unless you're just like super, super disciplined. I've had 22 years of eating this way, and I'm educating myself constantly. I'm learning constantly. So I'm just trying to, do this in a way that is not too sudden. Because if I do something suddenly, it's not sustainable in the long term. I have to start slowly replacing things. So the other day I bought what is that one powder called? It's something
Nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast.
Nutritional yeast. Yeah, that's what
it's
it
so
is.
Good.
I bought that and some cashews, and I am super excited to try to like make my own plant-based cheeses and stuff like that.
And I made lasagna where I made it with sweet potatoes instead of like lasagna noodles. And then I used, instead of ricotta cheese, I made my own with tofu and nutritional yeast, tofu ricotta. And I've made that for my entire family, and everyone really likes it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, vegan cooking is the most innovating, impressive thing I have ever seen, because I went to this one place called, have you been to Chili Mustard Onion?
Yes.
In Midtown Detroit?
Yes. I love that place.
Oh my gosh, their food is ridiculously good. It tastes even better than like the actual food that they're imitating, and you don't feel disgusting after you eat it. It's crazy.
I had chicken parm, and I had like gravy and poutine something. I've never had poutine in my life, but I had it there. Their cakes are really good too. Their desserts, yeah.
You know what? After the pandemic is over, let's go there.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Parking in that area is awful. Like, I parked on the street when I went there, and somebody had, like, literally put their car bumper to bumper with mine, and I didn't know how to get out. This really nice man, I call him my vegan father. I don't know who he is or whatever happened with him, but he had, like, really long white hair. He was wearing, I think, a bandana and shades, and he just looked like a really peaceful, loving man. And he was like, "It's okay, don't worry, I'm gonna help you through this. You know, I got you." And I was like, whoa, thank you. I feel so helped right now.
That's so nice.
And he helped me get out of the spot.
Wait, going back to being in a lower socioeconomic class and how that affected your eating?
Yes. So I live in an area that is heavily minority. It is mostly consistent of first-generation immigrants, and it is a lower to middle class area. So one of my friends was talking to me about this concept called food deserts. So in a food desert, there aren't a lot of healthy options available for people immediately. Like, you have to drive out to get healthier foods. And I totally see this. I'll just give you a little bit more specifics. I grew up in Detroit. I am a few miles away from Midtown and close to the border of Hamtramck. If you look at the availability of the types of foods that are around here, there are a lot of processed foods available. Like, I think there are 2 Dollar Generals that I can think of off the top of my head, and 1 Family Dollar, and a handful of corner stores. Recently, there have been a few more healthier grocery stores coming into the area. For example, we have El Harmine. I'm not sure how long that has been there, but honestly, the produce is a little bit it's a little bit pricey in that store, but it is available to people who want to go grocery shopping and stuff. But growing up, my family would always drive out to Warren. It was like a 20-minute drive to go grocery shopping. There aren't a lot of healthy foods readily available in the area. And if there were more healthy foods readily available to people, if access is made easier to things, then people are more likely to do it. Oh, yeah. The less resistance that you have towards something, the more likely somebody is to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just looked up the exact definition of food desert. It says, a food desert, according to Oxford, is an urban area in which it is difficult to buy affordable or good quality fresh foods.
You think that was because of the lower to middle class income area? Yeah.
I definitely think it is because this is a lower income area. Also because this is a minority area and like first generation immigrant area. So, I mean, that obviously plays into, it's very tricky talking about like low income communities and making exact statements. But I personally think that like companies only come into the area when they see the area is economically booming. Because for example, let's see when Whole Foods came to Detroit. It said Whole Foods in Detroit opened in June 2013.
Oh.
Whole Foods honestly is hella expensive.
Yeah, I love Whole Foods, but it's very expensive.
It is so expensive, and it is definitely not something that somebody who is, I don't know, maybe working on a factory salary like a lot of the people in this area do.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these people in the area, like a lot of my neighbors, they don't speak English. They just came to this country, and they get the jobs that they can get, which is primarily in factories, and the income working a factory job is not that high. You can't afford to go to Whole Foods. But we do have other options available around the area. For example, Joe Randazzo's. That is where I get my produce, and they have really great prices. It's just that if you don't have a car, it's going to be more difficult for you to get there.
Well, I guess most places you do need a car to get there, but 20 minutes is a long drive. To go all the way out 20 minutes to get something affordable.
Yeah, so Joe Randazzo's isn't 20 minutes away. Joe Randazzo's, I say, is like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
But like, I'm fortunate that my family has a car and we can drive out there. But I remember I was talking to one of my friends. He was talking about how growing up, his diet was not healthy at all, and he grew up overweight. I don't know if his family had a car growing up, but they accessed what they could around the area. So he grew up overweight, and then when he finally got to college, he found a different lifestyle for himself. He had access to these grocery stores that held healthier foods. He was able to educate himself on what it meant to eat healthy and take care of your body and start exercising. There's just a really big lack of education and access to health and healthier foods for certain communities, and that definitely contributes to people growing up unhealthy or having like chronic health conditions that are a result of their lifestyles.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in our area, we have about like a 230,000 people, I think, in Windsor. We have grocery stores probably I'd say like from wherever you are in Windsor, there's probably a grocery store within 7 to 10 minutes away from you that's pretty affordable. Like, we don't even have a Whole Foods around here. I don't really think we have any super expensive grocery stores around this area. We have like a Walmart, a Freshco, Superstore. They're all pretty okay. That's really interesting to see that the link between your diet and the way you feel, not everybody makes that connection. Even on medication, you didn't make that connection, right? When Ramadan happened and then you realized, oh, like I've changed my diet and something inside me changed. Like I feel different.
Definitely. It was so weird to realize that my breathing issues were a
breathing
result
issues
of my
too.
diet.
Not even like joint pain or something. Breathing issues. Yeah, I wouldn't have made that connection either. And your doctor didn't either.
Yeah.
A lot of times though, doctors just give you medication. They don't like tell you what to do to prevent disease or they don't tell you to like eat a healthier lifestyle. They'll give you medication.
Yeah, I think that is something that's really big in the American culture too, because I remember researching natural methods of healing at some point in my life, and I was looking at how a lot of European countries, European doctors treat their patients, and I found that if a patient is at risk for diabetes, the doctor will prescribe the medication and a healthier diet. But in America, it's more common for the doctor to put the patient on some type of medication.
Yeah. And I think it's also because medical schools are funded by pharmaceutical companies, from what I understand. And so they kind of teach them, like, you need to prescribe pills when something's wrong, not you need to help the patient prevent it.
Yeah, that just goes to show you
Sad.
You can't believe everything that you see or hear. You really need to do the research for yourself and make conclusions for yourself.
Moving forward, you don't so that self-diagnosed gluten intolerance wasn't there. It was just the processed foods. So then now what does your diet look like?
Let me run you through a typical day of eating for me. I have completely moved away from the concept of American breakfast. But American breakfast specifically, I'm not sure about if Canadian breakfast is like this, but American
the bacon
breakfast
and eggs
is essentially
kind of thing?
Dessert. It doesn't really make sense to me that you start your day off eating really, really sugary cereal, having like waffles with like really sugary syrup, or pancakes with whipped cream. That doesn't make sense to me, and I always thought that I hated eating in the morning. But then I realized, no, I don't hate eating in the morning. I hate eating breakfast foods.
Yeah.
So now, instead of eating all that stuff, I will make myself some noodles, or I'll make myself some roasted sweet potato, or something that I would typically have for lunch and just have it for breakfast. There's no category of foods for me anymore. I just eat what I like.
Same.
Like some of the staple foods that I absolutely love are sweet potatoes. Those are my absolute favorite. Cauliflower. I like to make my own ramen because I absolutely love packet ramen, but it does not make me feel good.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I bought some ramen noodles. It's not the packet kind, just like the individual noodles from an East Asian store down in Madison Heights, and a few ingredients, and I make my own ramen noodles.
Oh, that's cool.
They taste fabulous.
Do you get the ramen seasoning?
No. So I have found a way to imitate the ramen seasoning, and I am going to give you that recipe.
Okay.
So what I use is Thai red chili paste.
Okay.
And I think that's not vegan because it has fish in it.
Oh, okay. I mean, there's chili pastes that are vegan anyways.
Okay, that's good. So I use Thai red chili paste, ginger and garlic. So let me start from the beginning. I saute ginger and garlic in a little bit of oil, and then I add about 2.5 cups of water. And to that, you can add a vegetable bouillon.
Yeah, those are really good.
They are,
so
and reducing plastic waste and stuff because you're not using a carton of broth. Then I'll add 1/2 tablespoon of Thai red chili paste, 2 dashes of soy sauce, and some honey.
Nice.
And then I will cook the noodles in that broth, and the noodles really do a good job of absorbing the flavor. Mm-hmm. To me, it tastes better than the packet ramen, but it still has like that nice ramen smell to it.
Wow, I have never had packet ramen, but to all the listeners out there who love packet ramen and need a healthier option, there you go.
There's your plug. There's the recipe.
There's the plug. Aside from that, like, what else do you like to eat? Like, you mentioned rice, lentils, chickpeas. Just more of a Mediterranean diet, I guess.
I wouldn't say Mediterranean. I would say it's more South Asian. So my family is South Asian, and I love the taste of different curries. Mm-hmm. I love that, like, especially a lot of Indian dishes are vegetarian friendly.
Yeah. And
I don't like cutting meat, so I gravitate towards those. I like using a lot of chickpeas in my cooking. Spinach is really good. I recently started experimenting with tofu, but tofu is a little bit tricky. You have to learn how to work with it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn how to, like, squeeze out all the water properly, or else it's just going to taste like a crumbly sponge.
Yeah. With tofu, like, I make scrambled tofu, like scrambled eggs, with the medium firm tofu, kind of make scrambled, or I put it in my air fryer. I don't put any oil, but I just air fry it. Or I'll just stir fry it with, like, broccoli, onions, and stuff. Okay, my laptop's at 1%, so I guess we should probably end it here, but thank you so much for sharing your journey. I'm sure this is going to help somebody, because I just feel like when you hear someone else's journey about what they went through and how they never made that connection, there's probably somebody else out there who's experiencing the same. So do you have anything else to add? Have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story. I definitely think that there are plenty of people out there who are experiencing something like this, but they just don't make the connection. Like, I watched a video of a YouTuber explaining her health journey, and it was literally the same as my health journey. So I think a lot of people are going through this, but they don't realize it's their diet. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that this can help somebody out. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here and chat with you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.